have to do it one by one.
Yeah, I could put it on the consent agenda.
And you can adopt them all.
After you guys have reviewed them
like
and discussed them.
You know, yeah.
I mean, like, unlike those 3 board meetings where it took like.
Well, we broke them up purposely because.
Yeah.
There's like 900 of them.
They still, like, if we had that many, they still encourage us to do a special work session to get through all of them. But then I can just put them on the consent agenda, and then when we pass the consent agenda, if for some reason if someone still had a discrepancy with one of the policies, we can pass the consent agenda with that, holding the policies off until they're corrected. So I thought that was really interesting. That'll be very helpful.
Are we up on the screen or not?
I don't know if will we see it on the screen still, Richard?
There's no.
Yeah, because we're not doing the Google Meets anymore. We're just doing the live stream. So probably not.
1, 2, 3. There are 4 of us here.
I don't know that Brenda's going to show up because I just seen her son got married this past weekend. Did you hear from Brenda?
I did, but I remember her mentioning she was going to be in Texas, right?
Yeah, so I don't know if she was going to be here or not.
Got married.
No, that's not an excuse. She needs to call.
I was at the beach. I came back.
Right? We have a quorum. So
Brenda.
there she is.
Maybe you were in Texas.
She was.
No, the wedding was in Grants Pass.
Oh, that's right, that's right.
Correction, we are all here. The meeting of the Willamina School Board is called to order. If you're ready, Brenda, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's roll.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's see. First on our agenda, we do not have anything from the Board of Education. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Correct. Next up is the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. The motion, wait a minute. Yes, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed signify by saying nay. Vote appears unanimous. This is gonna be easy peasy. Next item on the agenda is audience time. No?
Correspondent.
Oh, excuse me, correspondence.
And I did not write a formal
jumping ahead.
report this time because we just met June 27th and there's not a whole lot of new news. But what I did in your in front of you, you have a small packet. And I shared last month that I would give you some information to help you think about district goals, because our August meeting is when we set our district goals. So I wanted to give you our state report card from year 2021. We don't have the 21-22 yet. They usually come out in the early fall. And then after that, you have the updated continuous improvement plan. It reflects our 22 through 25 plan. It is still a work in progress. We won't need to submit it to the Department of Ed until February, but we did a lot of updating because, it's a work in progress, and the original continuous improvement plan was from 2018. And so we got to check off a lot of things that were completed, but also continue with, we still feel really committed to the goals we set of improving academic growth and performance for all students, and improving culture. All students will develop social and emotional behavioral skills needed to be successful learners. And then our goal 3, we did have it as equity, but we, because equity isn't a standalone goal, it's just a way of operating your entire programs. And so we moved goal 3 to innovation. So developing participants as change agents, individuals equipped with knowledge, mindsets, and tools to create more equitable schools. But goal 3 is a work in progress. We are just starting to define what that's going to look like at Willamina School District as far as innovation. We know 2 things we're really going to focus on is getting community input, and you'll see further along in these documents, I have a form. The last page is Willamina School District priorities for community engagement. So we're looking at engaging the community on how we use funds and develop programs aligned with our high school success program, which was, originally known as Measure 98. Our student investment account, which is part of the Student Success Act, most recently passed. So we receive funds based on that corporate activity tax. And then Everyday Matters, which is our attendance program. The CTE Perkins programs of study. Our continuous improvement planning, which is the document that we were just talking about. So every school district is required to submit a 3-year continuous improvement plan. And it has to be aligned with your state report card and looking at the key performance indicators and where you're doing well and where there's opportunity or areas for improvement, and aligning your goals to make sure you are focused on those improvements. The community engagement, also we want to look at the early indicator and intervention systems. So the district leadership team started working on those. I've outlined it so that all of these come with earmarked money, and then that second column is all the allowable uses for those funds. So for instance, the high school success dollars can be used for dropout prevention, CTE enhancement, and college level course offerings. Student investment account can be used to increase instructional time, student health and safety, well-rounded learning experiences, and community engagement. Everyday Matters, obviously targeting improving regular attendance for all students. And then the CTE Perkins is to enhance or add programs of study in the career technical education area. So the final one is one of the newest things the state did this year was, with those 6 programs, all of them required a different report and different reporting process. They've aligned them all so that we can combine the reporting process. So that final page in your packet is about that integration and guidance for the high school success program, the student investment account, the continuous improvement plan, the early intervention systems, the CTE programs, and the Everyday Matters. What I did on this page, so you'll see the highlight, is I mentioned each program, again mentioned what were the allowable uses, but I also on this one included what we currently are using that money for. So you'll see current uses and then future planning and growth targets. So I just thought these were all good snapshots of the work our leadership team has done, but also, can help generate questions from the board as we go into our August meeting and create those district goals. And please don't hesitate as you go through these over the next month. If you have questions, just shoot me an email if there's something I can clarify.
If if I have a question about expenditures, I know I've already asked this a few times.
Sure,
but
sure.
The mental health services,
Which page are you on?
14. 67, 93, 94, 93.
Page 13, did you say?
14, 14.
14, okay.
It's 6,793 and 64. It's Yamhill County Health and Human Services.
So that is our contract. We pay it monthly with Yamhill County. So we have 2 counselors. They pay 50% and we pay 50%.
Okay, because my question is, do they come out here or are they just on call?
No, they're here. They're
Okay.
housed here. So we have Marisa Anderson,
Okay,
K through 5, and we have Kathleen Whalen for 6th grade through 8th grade. And then we also have 20 hours of a drug and alcohol counselor that's on site.
okay,
No, we house them.
good. Not during the summer.
No, actually Kathleen is available in the summer. Marisa does not, she does student contact days only, but Kathleen continues to see kids on her caseload during the summer. So she comes and has the office hours out in the student-based health clinic.
What's that drug and alcohol? Is that just for,
So,
I mean, I know what it is, but.
typically, what we're seeing is sometimes kids that might actually be on probation. So they might be ordered to do a diversion type program. They can, that way they're not missing school to go to an appointment in McMinnville. They can do it here on site. But also we've had a opportunity for our students that might get in trouble, like they come with a vape pen or they, have paraphernalia on them. Typically in our student handbook, it's a 3-day suspension. In lieu of a 3-day suspension, they can do 3 sessions with the drug and alcohol counselor. And so it's a lot of education.
Oh, interesting. I was just thinking that it's sad if that's a problem.
Yeah,
I'm sure
well,
probably
I mean, vape's a big problem in most high schools right now. And, a lot of schools are putting vape sensors in. And they're so easy to
hide.
They hide, whether they're slit up a sleeve and then, I feel like I'm so naive to what I'm even looking for.
Right.
The first time I came across a cartridge, I thought it was a flash drive. I didn't know what the heck it was. So I just kind of,
They look just like
flash drive. So there's a lot of education for staff too with some of the counseling programs too. They do a lot of professional development with our staff.
Wow.
Any other questions? All right, now is the audience time. Now is the time for our audience input. Is there any questions, comments, anything from the audience that they wish to bring before the board? Speak now or forever. Hearing none, next item on the agenda are our decision items. Green sheet. First item on our list of decision items is electing a chair and a vice chair for 2022-2023. Do we have?
We elect you, Karen. I make a motion to elect Karen.
Second. The motion to elect Karen Stockwell as chair, who has been moved and seconded. Who do we elect for vice chair?
What? Clarice, I mean,
Clarice, did you call her Clarice?
I'm not Clarice, so that works for me.
There your name is on the end.
Harley.
Carly
What's your last name, Carly?
Strauss.
Strauss. I second the motion. The motion to elect Karen Stockwell as chair and Carly Strauss as vice chair have both, for the 2022-2023 school year, has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote, and I'm going to split it on this one. All of those in favor of electing Karen Stockwell as chair for the 2022-2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote is unanimous. All of those in favor of electing Carly Strauss for vice chair for 2022-2023 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote appears unanimous.
Good job. Thank you, ladies.
Congratulations.
I was wondering, you guys have summer school year?
Next up, I will entertain a motion to move the bond, or motion to bond the superintendent at $100,000, the deputy clerk at $100,000, and principals and secretaries under a blanket bond in the amount of $25,000 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Just need to read that, right?
We are on item B on the green sheet.
I move to bond the superintendent at $100,000, deputy clerk at $100,000, and principals and secretaries under a blanket bond in the amount of $25,000 for the 2022-23 fiscal year.
Second.
The motion to bond the superintendent at $100,000, the deputy clerk at $100,000, and principals and secretaries under a blanket bond in the amount of $25,000 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All of those in favor of bonding the superintendent at $100,000, the deputy clerk at $100,000, and principals and secretaries under a blanket bond in the amount of $25,000 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote appears unanimous. Next item. I will entertain a motion to designate the superintendent as the chief administrator, custodian of funds, and budget officer for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second.
You have to move.
I thought you read it to do it.
I read
move
my
to
mind.
designate the superintendent as the chief administrator, custodian of funds, and the budget officer for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second.
The motion to designate the superintendent as the chief administrator, custodian of funds, and budget officer for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All of those in favor of designating the superintendent as the chief administrator, custodian of funds, and budget officer for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote appears unanimous. I move to authorize the superintendent and building principals as district representatives to apply for and administer federal funds during the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second.
The motion to Authorize the superintendent and building principals as district representatives to apply for and administer federal funds during the 2022-2023 fiscal year has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All of those in favor of authorizing the superintendent and building principals as district representatives to apply for and administer federal funds during the 2022-2023 fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote is unanimous. I move to designate Lisa Anderson as deputy clerk for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second.
The motion to designate Lisa Anderson as deputy clerk for the 2022-2023 fiscal year has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All of those in favor of designating Lisa Anderson as deputy clerk for the 2022-2023 fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote appears unanimous. I move to designate Steve Tusherer as the auditor for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second. Got 3 of them.
Is that how you pronounce his name?
Something like
You
that.
did well.
Oh, well, thank you. Close.
Close enough.
The vote to the motion to designate Steve Tusherer as the auditor for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion?
I'll just mention that we did put an RFP out for auditors. We haven't been super happy in the last few years. There's been some change, in staffing with his firm. However, we got no. He was the one and only bid. So, but we were able to talk about our concerns, and I feel like there's going to be a better urgency about getting our audit done in a timely manner. The last audit was not done on time, and it delayed receiving our first state school funding on time, and so that's concerning.
Right.
Yes.
So, but we were able to discuss that, and they've already come out and did a lot of the work, which we've never seen them this early on site getting started on the audit.
Nice.
Good.
Any other questions or comments? That just totally threw me off. I call for the vote to designate Steve Tusherer as the auditor for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year. All of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote is unanimous. I move to designate Bank of America, the local government investment pool, First Federal Savings and Loan, U.S. Bank, and Wells Fargo Bank as depositories of funds for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year. The motion to designate Bank of America, the local government investment pool, First Federal Savings and Loan, U.S. Bank, and Wells Fargo Bank as depositories of funds for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All of those in favor of designating Bank of America, the local government investment pool, First Federal Savings and Loan, U.S. Bank, and Wells Fargo Bank as depositories of funds for the Willamina School District during the 2022-2023 fiscal year signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. It's okay. It's like, okay, maybe you don't agree. All of those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote appears unanimous. I move to designate Lisa Freely at Willamette ESD as legal counsel for the Willamina School District for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second.
The motion to designate Lisa Freely at Willamette ESD as legal counsel for the Willamina School District for the 2022-2023 fiscal year has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion?
I just wanted to make you aware, in the past we used a private firm out of Salem, and several of the superintendents several years ago talked to Willamette ESD about hiring a attorney that school districts could use their local service plan dollars to retain. And so it's been a huge savings for our district because what we pay for the service is based on your student enrollment versus just a flat rate. And so then there's no hourly bills or anything like that. You pay based on your enrollment. And the nice part is I can contact her at any time, but so can my principal. So if they have something that comes up that, they want to, clarify or confirm, they can call her, email her, and get a response. So there's 21 districts that participate in Willamette ESD. I think 14 of us participated in this, and it's increasing this year, so they are hiring a paralegal now, but our costs won't go up, so that Lisa will have some support on some of the more housekeeping type responses and just making sure that they're taking care of all the districts. But I've been really, really pleased with the service.
Nice. Wow. That's pretty great. I now call for the vote. All of those in favor of designating Lisa Freely at Willamette ESD as legal counsel for the Willamina School District for the 2022-2023 fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All of those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote is unanimous. Finally, I move to adopt all adopted board policies currently in use for the 2022-2023 fiscal year.
Second. Flip a coin.
Was that Brenda that second?
Both of us.
Second.
Hi,
Yeah.
Jinx.
The motion to approve all adopted board policies currently in use for the 2022-2023 fiscal year has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments for board discussion? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All those in favor of approving all adopted board policies currently in use for the 2022-2023 fiscal year signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. Vote is unanimous. Is that it? Nope. Until the right. Next, oh good golly, wait, I just lost my papers. Okay, next on our agenda is the motion. Yeah, I'm looking at I move to donate lot 00190 of map R6701 as presented to the city of Willamina to facilitate the water improvement project. I did not get a map. Oh, there it is. Is there a second? Yeah, I have questions.
So is this some land or something?
It's just the easement. So basically, we own, from the stop sign all the way to the school, and to facilitate the water project, they need to dig up the land. And so the city's asking, well, maybe Sarah, you might want to share with the status of the project
Sure.
at this point.
Yeah, so I've been serving in the interim city manager role for a month now, and as part of that, I've taken over the water intake relocation project. And part of that, excuse me, thank you, allergies. If I stop breathing, just give me a second, it'll come back. So we're getting ready to come up on the end of phase 1 so we can start phase 2. And phase 1 was planning, which included our easement for the project so that we can move forward with phase 2, which will be moving into the construction, which of course means getting water up here to the school district, which is desperately needed as well. So that was included in the scope of the entire project as well. So that is, if you had a chance to look at the staff report that the Council of Governments prepared for us, this is kind of just included in that project. So there will be the permanent construction easement and then the temporary construction easement so that we can get that finished.
I second.
Cool. The motion
Thing
to
moving.
donate lot 00190 of map R 6701 is presented to the city of Willamina to facilitate the water improvement project has been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments from the board for discussion? I know I had one in looking through this, and it was a little confusing because in one chunk of paperwork, it was talking about, there's a value assigned to this piece of property just under $10,000, and then there's the request for a donation. Are we donating the land or are we getting compensation for the land?
So the way the wording is, it's asking for a donation. So the way that the Council of Governments, and Renata's amazing, she's the Community Development Director, and she handles these land use donations. So the value isn't $10,000. It just falls under the $10,000 spectrum because once you go above $10,000, there's other rules that apply.
Okay.
And you have to get the assessors involved and do an actual agreement for potential, or let the person know like this is how much it is worth and what the value is to give them an opportunity to request the appraisal value of the piece of property. But because I think of its location and it's so small and it's only for that water project and it's just such a small easement donation, it falls well under the $10,000 scope. So there would be potentially money that it is appraised at, but what we're finding is in some of these easements that we're trying to get donations from, they fall within a few $100s. So yeah, so. This is the wording that's legally through the state of Oregon that's required
like,
for the
oh my
document.
Right. So then with that donation, just for clarification, with the donation of this strip of land, and I'm sorry if I'm wasting anybody's time here, I'm just seeking clarification. The ownership of the property then is transferred to the city of Willamina. For construction purposes, but then it remains the property of the district. So then if anything happens to the water line doesn't fall under warranty, then it falls back on us to make after it's all built and everything.
I don't think, so I believe that once it's built, the city owns the line, but up to the meter, like we own everything after the meter.
Okay.
And would be responsible for repairing anything past the meter, but I think up to the meter, the city would, take responsibility for.
As is with all pieces of property.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
We just need to be able to get in there, dig it up, put some lines down, use the land around it to have some property to stand on to get it all done and fix the fact.
We're gonna ask you to levitate while you're doing this.
Well, so there's some parts of the line we might have to.
Thank you, Sarah. I
Yeah.
appreciate your answer. Are there any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I call for the vote. All those in favor of donating lot 00190 of map R 6701 as presented to the City of Willamina to facilitate the water improvement project signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. The vote is unanimous.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is under reports and discussion, policy or the IEP education program and the special education procedural safeguards.
Right, so these are two policies that already exist in our policy handbook. They are just some changes to existing policy. So your first policy, KGBAF, the AR, is in regards to special education. What it clarifies is that the district needs to ensure that when we have a student that qualifies under the eligibility of deaf or hard of hearing, that we are making sure that parents are aware of all services that that student can access, including the Oregon School for the Deaf. So that's something all public school districts pay into, and if we have a student that meets the criteria and placement would be appropriate, that parents understand that that's an option for their student. The other piece in that for policy is requirements for 16-year-olds, that we consider that a transition IEP, which requires beginning with the IEP where the child will turn 16, we need to start talking about after post high school plans, so career, vocational information, and have goals of do an inventory with the student of what their interests are, and then develop goals to help ensure that they're working towards those goals by the time they graduate. And then the other goal, separate policy, IGBAG, is procedural safeguards. So these are the, this is a document every year, is updated by Oregon Department of Ed. And when we start an IEP meeting, we ensure that parents are offered their procedural safeguards. That's mandatory. But the change in the procedural safeguards is making sure, particularly the IEP where a student will turn 17, is understanding that for special ed and IEPs, transfer of right goes to the student when they turn 18. So many students will turn 18 their junior or senior year, and regardless of the disability, the student takes over the ownership of their IEP, can make all the decisions regarding their IEP, whether to even access services. And so for some disabilities, where a parent's been very, very involved, particularly like you take intellectual disability where you might have a child that's probably gonna be homebound most of their life. We wanna make sure that parents have gone through the steps to know what they need to do to continue to be a decision maker when that child turns 18. So there's ways to continue for the parent to continue to be a decision maker, and so this new policy just really outlines that very clearly.
And were you saying, Carrie, that was started at age 18 or 17?
The day they turn 18, those rights. So usually the IEP where they're 17, we want to explain that very clearly to parents that upon their 18th birthday, the rights are to the child, and that they can make any changes. They can call a meeting. They don't have to invite you. And so understanding, your rights as a parent once you turn 18, and
Are they considered an adult then?
they are. And it's really interesting because this is just for special ed. Like, so for instance, they can't necessarily write an excuse for being absent, but they take ownership of their individual education plan upon their 18th birthday.
With that, I have a question on number 19. Discipline and placement of interim alternative setting. I don't have my board policy here, but it says discipline of students with disabilities. What exactly is the discipline of a student that attacks another student or teacher?
So if a student has a disability and that disability, the behavior is due to the disability, then you have different discipline guidelines you need to follow. For instance, say you have a student that is physically aggressive, and that's part of their disability. Like sometimes that's part of autism, that they sensory overload, they can become physically aggressive. So you would make sure that, number one, you've done a functional behavior assessment and developed a behavior support plan. And so it doesn't mean that they can't have discipline, but it means what you'll look at if a student on an IEP ends up being suspended for more than 10 days in a school year, it triggers what's called a manifestation determination meeting, and that's where we look at, was the behavior due to their disability? And did the school district follow the IEP as written in order to minimize or mitigate this from happening? And so is there a behavior support plan in place? Did we follow it? So things like that. And so it's not saying that there can't be. And we, we've done both, where we maybe didn't do so good following the behavior support plan, or we follow the behavior support plan, but it's still, the behavior elevates to a place where we can't keep that student safe or other students safe, and we start looking at alternative placements.
Cause I know that does happen everywhere.
Unfortunately, there's not a lot of alternative placements anymore.
Nope.
Tough decision.
Next on our list are future agenda items. Goal session, August, food service RFP, that's item number 7.
Yeah, so the packet was for that future goal session, so.
Okay.
And if there's any other information, this, or any questions that this information generates and you would like some additional information, please reach out to me, send me an email, and I can send it back your way.
Carrie, do we-
Richard, my emails don't work. We haven't for 6 months.
Richard's here. I know, I don't have it with me. Is our goal session, do we do that a little earlier? And
Typically, we do like a 6:30,
Yeah.
and then we have dinner.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we can
and
plan
do a
that.
working
Okay.
dinner.
And that's August 8th.
Mm-hmm.
What's August 8th? His birthday,
Board
his
meeting.
birthday. No,
What else is happening?
can't.
I know, we'll be here before we know it.
Right?
So 6:30
Walking
on
down
the
the hallway,
8th.
seeing
6:30 on the 8th.
Mid-July,
I
and
know.
kids will be back in school in
Okay.
3 days.
Oh,
Free food, oh, okay.
yeah, free food.
Well, I'm coming.
It's the only reason I show up. If there being nothing further on the agenda to discuss. What? What are you doing?
I'm pushing her buttons.
What kind of car did you set off in the
The
parking lot?
Willamina School Board is now adjourned.
Somebody just pulled up in my yard as I was leaving.
Hey, well, that-